Detroiters have to know. They have to know what's going on. And for us at Outlier, that's our vision of a liberated city. If we're going to have a liberated city, people should have access to the information they need to thrive.
Welcome to Pathbreakers, a podcast from the Kresge Foundation.
On each episode, we explore who has the power to shape a city. We're talking with change makers and city leaders who are tackling big problems in unexpected ways.
We'll learn more about the path-breaking work that they do, get into the nitty-gritty of how they get it done, and get some lessons from their playbook that you can implement in your own city. Hi, I'm Tracey Pearson. I work on the communications team at the Kresge Foundation.
And I'm Tracey's friend, Jamie Bennett, and I work at the intersection of arts, culture, and equitable community development.
So, Jamie, we have a special guest today, Orlando Bailey. He is the executive director of Outlier Media, cheerleader of all things Eastside Detroit, and we are so happy to welcome him to the show today.
Yep. Outlier Media is a newsroom, I guess you could call it, in Detroit, but it's doing local journalism in a different way. The work that Orlando and his colleagues are doing is community-led, it's participatory, it's collaborative. And because they work in this way, they are breaking news and making headlines that no one else is doing.
Yeah, it is not your typical newsroom, for sure. Outlier is an amazing example, actually, of Detroiters getting their own stories told and out into the public and building access to information that they otherwise might not have been able to access. So because we know that knowledge is power, and because citizens shape sort of like their own future and their own dialogues about the city, so it's really important that they know what's happening.
So after all that buildup, let's welcome both a friend and a hero of Tracey's, Orlando Bailey. Orlando, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you all for having me. Such a warm intro and generous. I appreciate it.
So Orlando, before we do anything else, tell us where you are. Where are you sitting? What neighborhood are you in? What's going on?
Yeah, so born and raised on the east side of Detroit, still residing on the east side technically. So I am coming to you live from Lafayette Park, which is
Awesome.
still technically the east side, but some folks like to call it downtown, but it's still east.
You're a lifelong Detroiter. How do you describe the city for people who aren't from here?
Oh man, I will describe it how my friend Candace Fortman, the inaugural executive director of Outlier Media, describes it. She gave me this language, and I think it's beautiful. Detroit is a living, breathing organism that we are all in relationship with. And so I am in this beautifully complicated, exuberant, sometimes domestically abusive relationship with the city of Detroit. But it is a place that is rich in history. It is a place that is rich in culture. It is a place that is very Black. And it is a place that has the profound ability to bring me great joy, but also cause me some pain and hurt. But that's what happens when we are in relationship with anybody, and in this instance, this place. So that's how I describe Detroit.
Love that.
Beautifully and eloquently stated. As a native Detroiter, I approve. So let's talk about Outlier Media. Like I said before, you all are running a completely different newsroom from what people might expect. You do a lot of different type of programming in the realm of community-led journalism, but one of the things that I think we would want to talk about today is training citizens to be reporters, specifically reporting on the underreported local government meetings. And that program is the Detroit Documenters. Can you walk us through what that program looks like?
Oh, certainly. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. I'll try to keep it brief. We have grown to become the largest documenters site in the entire network. And there are documenter sites and newsrooms all over the nation that's powered by City Bureau. What I would say is that we train and pay residents to take notes at public meetings. Now, most people would say, well, shouldn't that be a function of like government to like take notes and to publish those notes? And my answer to that will be yes, it is a function of government. It's why we have a city clerk. But those minutes and those notes aren't always readily available.
Mm.
There are always lags in time for getting those things posted. A lot of these policy imperatives are being discussed at these tables, and they have real life effects on Detroiters. Detroiters have to know. They have to know what's going on. And for us at Outlier, that's our vision of a liberated city. If we're going to have a liberated city, people should have access to the information they need to thrive. And so we have Detroiters taking notes in Detroit public meetings. And we have a editorial collaborative where there are about 8 or 9 newsrooms who help edit these documenters notes just in case there might be a story for any number of newsrooms to follow up on. And so it's my favorite thing to talk
Mm.
about, because not only do these notes go to newsrooms for editing, these Detroiters go back and they talk to their neighbors about what's going on. And that's amazing, right? That's so consequential. So
And Orlando, I'm guessing that this is things like the Housing Commission, the Police Board, the sort of nuts and bolts agencies that really help a city run. What kind of stories have you all uncovered? What's come out of that reporting? What do Detroiters know because of Outlier that they wouldn't have known otherwise?
I love this question. So there are a number of stories or series that I can point to. The first one being Outlier did a series on the Detroit Housing Commission, and all of the dysfunction and everything that was happening there, really, really long wait lists. And it led to a lot of policy changes. They have a new CEO. He's not new
Hmm.
anymore, but he's been there. Arthur Jemison is there
Mm-hmm.
now.
Oh, yeah.
And they have been turning over a new leaf. We're still watching what happens there. The Board of Police Commissioners, right? The Board of Police Commissioners is tasked with overseeing the Detroit Police Department and its ethics, right? Well, the documenters uncovered that there had been a significant backlog with the Detroit Police Department and the Police Commission investigating complaints against police. Like
Mm.
and it's a citizen backlog. So these are Detroiters who are lodging complaints
Mm,
against how they're treated against police, and there's a backlog for those complaints being investigated. Does that make
yeah.
sense?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's unconscionable when you think about it, right? But it really rings true for us in the space of this group, like these Detroiters taking notes, give input for our journalistic output.
About how big is the group? How many
Oh
folks are
man,
are in the program right now?
we have trained over 700 Detroiters to be
Oh,
documenters.
wow.
We have a little over 100 that are active because that's what we had the capacity for. We only got 2 people doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're always looking for support to expand and grow our documenter capability, because we would love to put more Detroiters in active status to take
Mm-hmm.
notes, because there's no shortage of assignments, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And Orlando, it's attending public meetings isn't the only way that you all generate leads for the coverage you do. There's a really amazing program that you all have. I sort of think of it almost like a city 311 program where a citizen, a resident of the city can text you and ask the outliers to
Yeah.
look into something.
I like to ask the outliers to look into something. Well, so I have to give kudos to our founder, Sarah Alvarez. Sarah Alvarez was disenchanted with the way journalism had been doing in our community and in the state. And one of the things that she just knew innately is that before people will read your 700 or 1,200 word story, right? What people need most is information. They need they don't care about your story.
Mhm.
Get them the information that they need pronto. And so before Outlier ever built a website where we were publishing stories, our very first product was not a news story. It was Text Outlier, where we can text back and forth with Detroiters who needed information, right? In many cases, information meant whether or not they would be able to keep their home, whether or not the lights would be turned off, whether or not their home will have heat in the wintertime. Um, can text in and actually speak with a reporter,
Oh, wow.
right? It's us behind it, right? It's us. You
Yeah.
get to talk to us. And that's our first product. It's our longest running product. And we're so proud of the Text Outlier brought about this investigation we did into a landlord that was selling shares on like the blockchain, digitizing ownership of Detroit homes that were derelict. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. Um, People needing the city to respond to their requests. City contractors who've gone out and have done some work but have eroded lawns and sidewalks and driveways. Folks texting to us, we link into it. And before we can even write a story about it, because we're looking into it, it gets fixed.
Mm.
That's the kind of, that's the work, that blockchain investigation that I was just telling you about just got a mention at a congressional hearing
Hmm.
a couple weeks ago by Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, and it was up for discussion. I mean, that does not happen without Text Outlier.
That's awesome.
What I love about this, though, is that you are letting people participate with the capacity that they have,
Hmm.
and they are engaged. They are talking about their neighborhood. They are talking about the things going on in their communities through text because everybody has a phone in their hand. They might not have a computer, or they might not have a membership to, or a subscription, excuse me, to one of the mainstream newsrooms, but they got that phone and they got
They
a
do.
neighbor. And that's
Yeah.
how information is getting shared. And I just love that it is the capacity with what you have to engage.
Yeah, I mean, there's a technological gap here in the city of Detroit. Folks
Hmm.
don't have access to broadband internet. And so we're a digital outlet, but if 30 to 40% of Detroiters don't have access to broadband internet, how are they going to find us? We needed to get in their hand,
Hmm.
right? And ask. So residents sending questions to us, but sometimes we also ask questions, like what was the question? For example, I don't think we've asked this question, but for example, how are you engaging in, public space?
Mm.
And are you going to the parks? Are you utilizing the parks? We are doing something right now on Instagram about young people. How do young people want to show up in public space in the city of Detroit? And folks respond. It really is an incredible tool. It's an
Hmm.
incredible tool. Yeah.
Orlando, when I think about Outlier and the way you've described it, I mean, it's almost hyper local. Your work is sort of by and for
No, it
the
is.
people
It
in
is
Detroit,
hyperlocal.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
and what's interesting to me is a lot of the news I consume is sort of accountable to whoever owns the company or is accountable to the advertisers. I'm guessing you all have a sort of different level of accountability because you have to be accountable to your friends, to your relatives, to your kids' teachers. What does that mean? How do you sort of walk responsibly in the world just knowing that you've got to do that?
How much time you got?
I
That's
got
the
I got the
question.
rest of today.
So a few things, right? Outlier is a hyper local newsroom,
Hmm.
right? We report in and on Detroit and Highland Park, sometimes and Hamtramck. These are communities that are
Yeah.
literally in the heart of the city. Um, we're a nonprofit newsroom, and so we have a membership program where our readers are giving to us. I have an aggressive, Tracey knows this, philanthropic strategy where I'm always in the face of philanthropy trying to ensure that we're on somebody's docket for funding this work. And we have, separate from our editorial site, we have a sponsor content and advertising program. We always maintain and ensure that whomever is giving us money, that we maintain our editorial independence. Have to. And sometimes it gets tense. And that's okay. We lean into that tension. And that was pressure. It was pressure tested a couple of weeks ago with a funder in Detroit, who I will not name, that we had to do some reporting around a program that this foundation was championing. And, it was a little bit of a pressure test. We had some discussion, but we made it to the other side, and both sides are better for it, right? And so we will always maintain our editorial independence. We do not run opinion pieces. It's a hard line there. No opinion, editorial independence, and even internally, there is a firewall, right? So I'm the ED, I'm on the business side. I do not and cannot influence the journalism that Outlier is doing on the editorial side, because I'm
Right.
having conversations about money and our sustainability and investment. I can't have my hands in both sides of the house. And so we are accountable to Detroiters. That's what we're accountable to.
Yeah.
Not a billionaire, not a philanthropic organization, and not a corporation who may give us money for a sponsor content or an advertisement. We are responsible and accountable to residents.
But what I love about that, though, is the trust that you get from that.
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
Detroiters, when we feel that you are not being honest, we will
Yeah.
call you out on that. We will call
Yeah.
you to the mat and say, you
That's
did
right.
this and that's not right. And that's if you go to any community meeting, we will speak truth to power. And so I commend you all for doing that. So my question is, what are some things and some ways that you all um, have been able to maintain that engagement and sort of earn that community trust?
I love the question, Tracy, and I want to go back really quickly and I'll answer that question. But, Pew Research does research all the time around trust, specifically trust in journalism. And really, to just extrapolate from years of research that Pew has done, there's been a fraught relationship between Black folks in the media. And it is localized. It is localized here in the city of Detroit in the space of, if the media only wants to talk to you on the absolute worst day of your life
Mm-hmm.
and get that story and then go about their business and never talk to you again, that doesn't feel good.
Mm-mm.
That doesn't feel good. When Detroit was dispossessed of being able to access their democratic power because of emergency management, and the narrative that mainstream news organization and local news organizations took was, Detroit is dying. Detroit is on the brink of death. And Black people personified and gave image to death of the city, right? It was this really insidious narrative that went out and reverberated around the nation. And so Black people in Detroit have reason not to trust media. And they don't owe us anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we go in and enter into our engagement events and our community engagement, recognizing that Detroiters don't owe us anything. Detroiters don't got to talk to us if they don't want to. But the way this city works and the way media needs to understand how this city works is relational, not extraction. And so we have to be in relationship with Detroiters before this is wisdom from an elder in the Detroit community in North End that she gave to me. She was like, before we get engaged, don't we got to be in a relationship first? Don't we got to date first? You talking
And
about
do.
community engagement. She was like, date me first. Let's be in relationship first before we start getting engaged.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love that. And so We got to be in relationship. That means showing our faces. That means showing up without an agenda. That means being accountable, right? And when you keep showing up, that's how you build that trust. That's how you build that relationship. When you show up after you'd have been cussed out at a community meeting and you show up at the next one, you know what I'm saying? It is that.
You in relationship.
You're in relationship. That's what this is about.
I love
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
Orlando, I got to actually hear you on a panel last month before at the Night Media Forum. And during
Oh,
that, you actually gave credit to your grandmother for your career. Would you mind sharing that
yeah.
story with our folks as well?
I mean, my grandmother was, that neighbor who had the information because she read the paper. She loved reading. So listen, in her house, because it took her forever to get a TV,
Mhm.
okay? And when she had TV, growing up, she wasn't getting cable. She was not paying for cable, and it's like we got
2,
cable at
4, and
home.
7.
You feel me? And so we were either watching the news or we were reading everything in the house. So grandma had the Free Press, the Detroit News, the Michigan Chronicle, Ebony, Essence, Jet, Black Enterprise, like all of these journalism publications. She would read the paper every day. And before I could even read as a toddler, I would climb in her chair, put on her reading glasses, open up the paper like her, and like I was reading it. I thought it made her smart. So I was fascinated with the newspaper from a young age. And I bought my first Free Press subscription in the 6th grade. So I
Oh,
was reading the
wow.
newspaper on the school bus with my own money on the
Wow.
school bus on the way to school.
You were on the D
Um,
dot reading that
no,
newspaper
on the cheese bus,
on the cheese bus.
on the cheese bus. And so growing up, my uncle, my great uncle, my grandmother's brother-in-law nicknamed me newspaper. So it's just been there. It's always been there. It's been in the ether. And my grandmother, talk about a documenter. Let me tell you what old folks do all day when they retire and come home. They come home and they sit on that porch and they're gonna tell you everything that happened
Mm-hmm.
that day on the block.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What it and give and animate it in a way that it turns into this amazing story. What is my grandmother but not the greatest griot that I've been able to sit under? What is my grandmother if not one of the most amazing documenters? What is my grandmother if not the matriarch of our family, but also the matriarch of our community, where everybody would descend on her house for a good time and to share stories and information?
It's beautiful.
Yes,
I feel like that is
that's what I grew up in. I grew up in that.
a beautiful epilogue to the story in the beginning of, like you said, the genesis of your career. And
Yeah.
if you had to think about it, like it was like a playbook, if you will, if you had to share it with somebody else, that's one of the themes that we're exploring this season on Pathbreakers. I want to ask you, what is a piece of advice that maybe your grandmother or someone gave you that along the way you find yourself going back to it and really using it to influence how you work in the way that you do what you do?
Yeah. Piece of advice from my pastor, you know, high highs come ever so often. Low lows come ever so often. Learn how to be constant.
Mm,
That's beautiful.
And what that translates to is there has to be an affinity and a love for the process, because the process is the most constant thing, right? There, maybe I get to be like on stage at Night Media Forum ever so often, and that's a high, right? But that's not every day. I'm
Mhm.
not on stage every day. I'm not on somebody's podcast. I'm not holding a
You
microphone
do
every
be
day.
around town though, Orlando. I'm
I
just
am
gonna say
around,
you a
but
busy
what I'm
man.
saying, this is true, but what I'm saying though is that's not what I'm chasing.
Mhm.
I'm not chasing that high because it's fleeting. It comes and it goes. The work, though, that continues to create and carve out the path that I am on and carve out the opportunities that continue to come my way is the constant thing.
Orlando, somewhere in somewhere in the United States is a sixth grader sitting on a bus who's going to be the next big thing in community media. What does she need to know? What advice do you have for the Orlando Bailey who's coming up behind you?
Oh, I love this question. Stay curious.
Mm.
You cannot do this work and not have an insatiable curiosity. We always say that journalists know a little bit of everything and know a whole lot of nothing at the same
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
But we're constantly asking and chipping away. Gotta stay curious.
I love that. Well, Orlando, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your
Thanks
insights,
for
your
having me.
wisdom. I always feel like when we talk, I come away feeling like, oh, I was just been fed. I just
Ah,
really appreciate it. And that mean that sincerely.
Tracy, I appreciate that, and thank you for saying that, and I receive it.
That's beautiful. Orlando, I have a feeling that a bunch of people are going to be inspired to get involved with Outlier Media. What can they do to support you? Where can they sign up to become a documenter? How do they text? Like, give us the 411.
You know, local media is thinning out. It's thinning out. We will stay around if y'all keep us around. So we need
Hmm.
your support, right? Give, give. I'm taking up offering everywhere I go. Give. If you want to speak with a reporter, if you have a question about any and everything Detroit, text Outlier, text Detroit to 67485. Again, you could just text Detroit to 67485. And visit our website also to become a documenter and learn about our next info session.
What's the website, Orlando?
Outliermedia.org, outliermedia.org. And yeah, check us
All
out.
right. Well, we will see you all next week. Thank you so much, Orlando. Take care.
Thanks for having me.
Pathbreakers is produced by the Kresge Foundation. Founded in 1924 with the mission to promote human progress, Kresge today works to expand equity and opportunity in America's cities.
Learn about our grant making and social investing work in Detroit, Memphis, New Orleans, Fresno, and cities across the U.S. at Kresge.org. To hear more stories from the Pathbreakers, be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts.
Our producer, as always, is Juliet Heinley. Managing editor is Krista Yankee, with huge help from her Kresge colleagues, Maria DiLorenzo, Kate McLaughlin, Jordan Duckins, and of course, the one and only Tracey Pearson. The show art is by Alejandro Herrera. Logo animation by Colin Likes. Our social media mastermind is David Carrick.
And a special thank you on this episode to Kresge's Detroit program, including Wendy Lewis Jackson and Jonathan Way. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.